Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Please enjoy this episode of Spending Time on Baselworld 2019. I am joined once again by David. Hey David.
That's right. Hey, everyone.
So this is going to be, I think, my 10th Baselworld.
Wow.
Which, yeah, I know. Maybe even, is it 10th? Maybe 11th? Something like that. It's at least number 10.
Do you get a
Um,
medal for that or something like that?
uh, well, it's kind of like you have like a scar, and then you get to show people like how impressive your scar is. Like, I got this in battle. The Battle of
Okay.
Baselworld. Do you remember a couple years ago we had watches made that said the War of Baselworld, whatever?
That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not a fight per se, like it's not a combative thing, although it can be. But Baselworld is a lot of work, and when you look at pictures online of trade shows like SIHH or Basel for that matter, there's a bunch of people in suits walking around. There's nice carpeting and pretty lights and nice signs, and that is all there. But it's also a very hectic time because you have to realize within a relatively small amount of time, even though the show's about a week long, we have a lot of meetings to have. There are
Mm.
it's less brands now, but there's more brands that we could ever meet with. And we as a team, there's going to be 5 or 6 of us at least at the show this year. We have to carry a lot of equipment, and we have to wade through the war, which is meetings and the people and everything like that. It's an adventure. It's a non-luxurious adventure in covering luxury.
That's so true. Yeah. Actually, it was pretty funny because I was watching some, just a couple of videos from Geneva Motor Show, which happened at I believe it's at Paul Expo, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going on like a couple of days before, and I could see that those car reviewing guys who were just really seasoned, they were just wearing the super simple clothes and stuff, and they already apologized in their first video that they're going to look like crap by the end of their last video of the day. So I was like, I can so totally relate to that, and the trouble is it's so difficult to explain, the hardship which it is to be, of course you're surrounded by watches, but that's only a fraction of the time that you spend with the watches that you wanted to see. And then there's a whole lot of other stuff that's going on and just so many things to pay attention to.
Right, and we actually don't take that many pictures of Baselworld itself, like meaning the show and things related to what the scenery looks like in our meeting rooms. Once in a while we do that, and I always joke because a lot of the meeting rooms, we could confuse them for being like. In like in a cruise ship or something like that. Like like are you in a cruise ship room? Oh no, that's a meeting room at Baselworld. So I'm looking right
Yes.
now at the top 10 watches of Baselworld 2018. This is from last year, of course, and I said an industry in exciting transition. I feel that when it comes to Baselworld, as well as shows like SIHH, for the last several years, I keep saying things like transition or there's some type of lack of direction or something like that. And I remember even with SIHH saying that a few years ago. Do you, over the last couple of shows, feel that what the watch industry has been and what a trade show has been continues to be sort of a moving target?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The question is, what do we make of that? Where are things going? And um, I keep asking myself, like, how should I, shape my future purchase decisions as a watch customer or watch buyer, and less so, from as a professional who works in this environment, because that's us. That's 0.001% of the people who are affected by what's going on in the watch industry and these trade shows right now.
So we're looking back here really quick at the top watches of the show. There's a
Yeah.
Rolex, there's a Casio, there's a Patek, there's an Omega. Those brands tend to fall into the top watches. Omega and the Swatch Group are not going to be there, and that's probably the biggest change for Baselworld 2019 is the lack of
Huge.
what is it like
Yes.
14 or 16 brands or some large amount of brands that are under
Hmm.
the Swatch Group that just simply won't be there.
Yes. It's a huge change.
And so there's a
And let's clear this up because there's been this rumored thing in Zurich starting right before and lasting into Baselworld. And we've consulted with a lot of Swatch Group brands, and it has to be said that not even they were like a lot of the times sure what was going to happen. Even like as recently as 1 or 2 months ago, they had absolutely no idea what to prepare for.
Yeah,
And so what
yeah.
we learned is that it's going to be a retailer and distributor only thing in Zurich, where they are going to show some novelties, but then how us, the press, and through us, the world, will get to see those novelties is a mystery for a lot of the Swatch Group brands. Not all of them, but a lot of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a correct statement, and it represents sort of what we've been hearing. I mean, make a long story short, we will have coverage of new Swatch Group product. There will be new Swatch Group models for sure.
Yeah.
We've seen some of them already. We know that some of them will come later. There is no specific way that the Swatch Group has intentions to meet media, and they're going to invite some retailers to Zurich during the show, but they've made it very clear there's not going to be any pictures. No one's going to see anything. So there'll be
Oh yeah.
some surprises throughout the year for people that are interested in the Swatch Group products. And I remember that there was an article that we published based upon an investor report that Swatch Group released promising a bunch of stuff for 2019, including finally the release of the Tissot T-Touch smartwatch, which I think they've been promising for like, what, 3-4 years now?
3 years, yeah, or
Yeah.
4, yeah, that's right.
I remember seeing prototypes of it, and then you hear about it, you don't hear about it, so they promised that'll be released. I think that towards the summer and things like that. And so there's a picture here on the Baselworld website of the middle area where the Swatch Group used to have most of its stuff, and it's sort of empty. And there's going to be some meeting rooms there and some hangout space, especially I think the new press area is going to be in there. But that's
It's
going
gonna
to
be
be
a runway for like a fashion show or something like that.
yeah, that's a new thing, the fashion show. So okay, so this is a funny thing, and this is one of the things that they're saying is new for Baselworld. Where, and again, I haven't seen this; it's new, but there's going to be a runway with models that are wearing
The
watches and
watches.
jewelry. I've been
Yeah.
told by Baselworld it's basically primarily about jewelry. And you and I have seen something like this in Hong Kong. Do you remember?
Yes, I was exactly going to say that. That just reeks of Hong Kong Watch and Clock Fair. It's so much. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, so let's tell people about that. Again, as Westerners, we kind of go and we're a little amused by this. So there was a room where
Mm.
there was, yeah, I guess a runway, and there was models, and they were wearing the watches. And I think the funny thing is, I mean, most people know the concept of a fashion show runway, and the idea
Of
is that
course.
as an audience member, you should be able to see someone walking and I don't know, admire, judge, evaluate the clothing that they have or whatever, and that's the point of a fashion runway. But if the same situation tries to focus on a watch, how is someone standing 20 feet away even supposed to be able to see what the watch looks like on the person?
Yeah. 20 feet or 60 feet or whatever. It's very difficult. Actually, what happened once in Hong Kong, there was this smaller room where you had like face-to-face time with some of the brands, and you could just network a little bit. And you had the same thing, and people, these models would just come into the room and walk in between the tables, and you could look at stuff. And that was a little bit better, but of course, I doubt it's going to be implemented here.
Well, there's a page right now that talks all about, they call it the show plaza.
Yes.
And they promise that over the course of the show, there's going to be 15 fashion shows.
Hey.
Three live shows a day. International fashion models will appear on a large catwalk to present the latest collections from selected designers and well-known jewelry manufacturers. The pieces can also be projected onto gigantic LED walls during the show. So that answers the question
So
about how
they
you
did
can see
think
that.
about it.
Yeah,
Kudos to them. They're trying. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it works. They needed to make use of this space. Some of it is, I hope, is going to be
I think it'll
useful for
just be
sitting
good,
down.
useful. I think it'll just be a great
Yeah.
hangout space. Like imagine if
Yes.
we're recording a video and in the background there's, I don't know, like a fashion show going on. It just adds a new element to it. But at the end of the day, this has nothing to do with appreciating men's watches in any way, shape, or form.
Not for us, but think about how many fashion, editors and stuff like that are there. It's gonna be great. It's gonna get at least 1 or 2 pages here and there in these fashion magazines around the world, because Baselworld is now focusing on fashion. So in that regard, this could actually bring Baselworld to a wider audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I, speak the same. That we like Baselworld. We think that trade shows are important. The ability for people to connect and talk and share best practices is what has been missing from these shows. So I'm looking right here again at this space. I'm seeing chairs. I'm seeing people hang out. I want people to sit, meet with one another, and do business. And that's very different than how these trade shows tend to be set up, which is as a forum for meetings, as opposed to a trade show. And the idea is that a bunch of these brands have their own booths and own little areas and hope to attract as many attendees as possible for private meetings. There's no like talks from top CEOs or industry professionals about best practices, new technologies. Like none of that really happens. And so I feel that anything that allows people to meet and talk and hang out in collective spaces is probably a good thing, not only for Baselworld, but for the industry.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. We've been asking for this for a long time, and finally there's a little bit more space to hang out and just get stuff done because
Yeah. So okay, so
yeah.
product-wise, the listeners, I'm sure they care so much about the ins and outs of being at Baselworld, but if they're not going themselves, what they care about is the watches and what we're going to see. So I'm here at the brand page on Baselworld, which has, of course, the top brands of the biggest supporters. There's Rolex, that includes Tudor. There's Patek Philippe, Chopard, the LVMH brands, Chanel, Breitling, Bell and Ross, Gucci. These are the brands that they're promoting here on the first page. There's obviously a lot more, but this is where Baselworld gets a lot of his business and or its draw. And Baselworld has lost some advertisers and things like that. But you want to know what if not advertiser, exhibitor, when an exhibitor leaves Baselworld or any show for that matter, I actually believe there's a good chance that they could come back. So I think that Baselworld is okay with having some exhibitors go away, because I think what they're trying to do is recreate a lot of what makes the show interesting, and then invite brands back for a new experience, which I'm pretty sure is what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I see like I'm just sector. I'm selecting these brands by sector, and I see Hall of Dreams. And in the Hall of Dreams, there's Rolex, there's Patek, Chopard, Gucci, Claude Bernard, and Edox. How does that even like that? I have no idea what I'm
The
looking
Hall
at
of Dreams. Look, I mean, they have Hall of Dreams, Hall of Desires, Hall of Elements, Hall of Fascinations, Hall of Impressions, Hall of Universe, Hall of
here. Hall of
Visions.
Dehydration.
I mean, this is not new stuff. This is just sort of the way it's sort of been before in terms of
Hall
how they
1,
name things.
1.2, 1.1,
The
yeah.
Le Atelier is probably the place that we're gonna have the most fun. That's where the independent brands are. That's where the cool kids are, so to say, and
Yeah.
where we can see new stuff. And I actually, what's amazing is, despite the fact that the watch industry continues to be in a recession, there's always new brands. Every single year there's new brands. Or sometimes it's just old brands that come back, but whatever the fact may be, there's entire companies that we were not familiar with the year before.
Yeah, that's true. But that's good. That's
It
part
is
of the
good.
fun.
It is good, and it's encouraging because we know that we're going to go to the show and we're going to see Rolex and we're going to see Tag Heuer, and we know that we're going to see those watches. But what's exciting is when we go and see brands that we didn't know, and we see and touch the product. And that's what's kind of cool, because most of our experience when it comes to new brands is on the internet, where they'll email us and be like, "Hey, check out our new stuff," and we have no idea if it's cool or what it looks like in person. Like we're guessing. But at Baselworld, when we go around to the little booths, especially at the sort of the smaller booths here and there, we have this ability to like experience a bunch of new things. And that's one of my favorite things from the show. But also, it's harder and harder for us to do that because we have so many meetings happening with the bigger brands, and so we have to like pull ourselves to the side to see some of these smaller guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It's always conquering and dividing all the time.
Yeah, which is the fun. So okay, so what do you want to see at the show product wise? What do you feel that 2019 needs? You can mention a specific brand. You don't have to. Like what is the collector and consumer market interested in now?
Honestly, it's a little bit more difficult. I'm expecting to see really loud, really exciting pieces from smaller brands, from the smaller guys that we just talked about. And of course, then there's going to be some of the flagship models. And Rolex remains one of the great mysteries every single freaking year. And the funny thing is, like in recent years, not in 2018, but the years before, their flagship release was kind of meh to me. When it came out and I saw it, and I was like, wow, this is it for this year. And then as time went on, and I could reconnect, so to speak, with the watch, and I could see it again, I was like, wow, it really grew on me. So it's really funny because you said it's 10 years for you. I think it's my fifth or sixth. I don't know how many Baselworld for me, and as time goes on, you connect these dots, and you reflect on how you reacted there and how you reacted years later and so on. So I guess this also affects the way that we cover this event. So there's a bunch of different things to take into consideration. First reactions from us, first reaction from the audience, the brands, and so on. So there's a lot of things that are going to go down on the 20th of March.
I think one of the reasons that it becomes very difficult to predict what Rolex is going to come out with is they don't necessarily release things related to trends or business needs. They have a bunch of watches ready. And they just like, well, we have to release 6 new ones, and which ones are they going to be? And they just sort of pick and choose. And the fact that to a degree it's random, it's like what they feel. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are market demands and things to take consideration, but Rolex is probably beyond the phase of its modern existence where it's creating a lot of new stuff. Like, yes, the Sky Dweller was a new collection, but I mean, what are we going to get? A new Rolex collection maybe every decade or so?
That's really so interesting. Yeah.
It's really about regurgitating what they have. I don't want to use a crude term like regurgitation, but it is. It's how do we keep chewing the Submariner, chewing the GMT, chewing the Explorer, whatever it is, in order to get something that's just that much more satisfying.
That's so true. I was just looking at the Sky Dweller and the Yachtmaster, and I was thinking to myself, those are the 2 collections that we've received, 2 brand spanking new watches that we've gotten from Rolex since 2000. I mean, 2000 gave us a 4130. Obviously, that was a huge step up and a completely new movement. Other than the 4130, there's these 2 movements, which are extremely complicated. And the more I've researched them, the more I dug into them, and I found some pretty cool images that we actually have done a hands-on with the Yachtmaster a couple of months ago, and I included these cool images and this cool information that I could find. That actually is the most complicated movement that Rolex makes. Everyone thinks it's the Sky Dweller, but it's not. It's the Yachtmaster 2.
Yeah.
And so where this is leading me to is the question: when, if ever, are we going to see something so crazily over-engineered or done the Rolex way, so to speak, brand new movement? Do you think that's ever going to happen?
Well, let's look at the Cellini, for example, the Cellini Moon Phase, which came out, was it last year or the year before? I don't remember.
Good point. Yeah.
So the Cellini Moon Phase was a new watch from Rolex that had a movement with a moon phase. And this was such a departure from Rolex because they do not normally have watches that are purely emotional in character when it comes to the functionality. Like, their watches are intentionally simple or focused on practicality. Like the Sky Dweller, for example, is a very practical watch. It doesn't have complications like, well, that's fun. But the moon phase is literally like, well, people know that the moon is pretty, so we put it on there. And that is an enthusiast-oriented Rolex. They came out with literally just one SKU of it, so we don't know more will come. They're testing it. But Rolex is open-minded at what they should make next. Rolex does not have a clear direction because they know that the strategy forward is not creating useful products. It's creating products which are in demand, that compete successfully against the other timepieces out there, and continue to serve as a fashion, lifestyle, and wealth statement. And in the era of smartwatches and not exactly a global economic growth everywhere, how do they do that? Do they focus on more bling? Do they focus on more sort of simple watches or just steel watches? You can see that they just sprinkle things all over the place. Like, here's a crazy Daytona with jewels all over it, and here's like a $5,000 steel watch which is entry level. And what I recognize is that they are trying to play several different roles at once. It's challenging to do, and Rolex is probably, out of all the brands, the best at being strategic about releases. So even when they come up with things and we're like, I wonder what the reason for that is, it shows how difficult it is to determine what to release next. And I don't think that the best thing to do, and actually Rolex is a little bit guilty of this as well, but I don't think the best thing to do is to ask themselves, well, what is it the consumers want? A lot of brands now are like, I don't need to do any marketing. I'm going to make a Facebook page and just ask brands what they want to see next, or ask the fans what they want to see next. And usually the fans are like, well, I'm not a creator, but you made this watch a while ago and I really like this color. Could you make it again? And then all of a sudden the brand's like, oh, this is the way to learn what to make next. We should ask existing customers what models they wanted and then make new ones. And I don't know that that's the way of moving forward because, the companies have been using the term innovation for years. They keep saying innovation, the importance of being innovative, da 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 da. And you and I are like scratching your heads, like, you're innovating where? But what they're
Oh
actually
yeah.
doing is creating a product that the consumer did not expect. The innovation comes in a sense of unpredictability. That's what they're
Which
trying
the
to go
Swiss
for.
hate by law.
Yes, yes. Unpredictability is something that it's practically illegal in Switzerland. Um, so they're asked to be creative while at the same time being calculated about it.
Yeah.
And in the sense that the calculation is, does the market want these watches? Is this a good idea? Is there some type of established success record? And so all brands, Rolex included all the way to the bottom, are asked to do two competing things that cannot live together in the same type of effort, and that is be risk averse and safe, as well as being creative and innovative and doing something new. How do you do both of those things at the same time?
Yeah, of course you can. And this is where, actually, here's the funny thing. Technically, in a way, that's what Rolex has been doing. They've been innovative, and they've been trying to, like, just nudge forward, just gently develop watches that they designed 60, 70 years ago. And there's never really, I mean, I was shocked when they said, "Oh, this is the 50th anniversary of the Daytona," and I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, why celebrate it? Well, that's the point of Rolex, that they are very humble and very quiet about when some of their watches were actually first designed and first debuted. Like, everyone and their mother knows, when the Reverso was made, or the friggin' Moonwatch or whatever. Everyone knows those dates at this point because they've been set so many times. Whereas Rolex, what Rolex does is just keeps rolling these collections forward and introducing smaller and more rarely bigger updates to it. But technically, if you look at the first Datejust and you look at the Datejust today, it's essentially exactly the same watch. So that very, very similar, and I think that's where they've been, nailing this balancing act that you just described.
Yeah, they do it well, but I'm sort of saying that they exist at the top of the ladder when it comes to doing this well. So even they struggle at figuring out what to do. So they do it the best, but they
Yes,
still have challenges doing it. I don't think they have it down to a science. Um,
yeah.
One of the new things that Baselworld itself is excited about is their new app that has like chat support, a chat bot. Um, how do you think we will be able to use this? Do you think we'll be able to, like, tell me where this meeting is? I want to. They were like put so much emphasis into this. Do you think that this is just for people that English is their second language and need some help, or like
Can you put in, like, David is super hungry and is about to freak out, or anything like that?
it says
If you can.
it will also answer your questions about Baselworld. It says you can buy your
Hmm.
tickets directly from the chat bot. Great. And it will also answer your questions about Baselworld. Should we just try to ask random things?
Yes.
And then
Yes. Oh my God, that's gonna be pretty hilarious. Actually, let's do that.
and so they have new sections on the website now for restaurants and nightlife and things like that, which I maybe it's been here
Ooh.
before, but it's kind of cool. They tried to establish, like, here's where to hang out, like, at night and with the partners. And it was funny because they released this email to a
I
lot of
saw that.
people, and it was basically like, we've worked with some of the restaurants at Basel to make sure that you won't be overcharged.
Wow. Oh my God, that sounds like something more Eastern Bloc than that. That's where this would be like required, not freaking Switzerland.
I mean, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but in the scheme of luxury and first world encounters, there are instances in Basel that, as a city, I don't mean the show, but as a city, that don't necessarily match up to. There's a lot of charm to the city, but it's not a luxury city in any way, shape, or form.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
you have this luxury show in a non-luxury city, and they understandably want to take advantage of it. And so hotels and restaurants and some things like that, what they would do, and maybe they still have, is for many years have their own prices and menus and things like that, like just for Baselworld. Just for that week, they're like, okay, the prices are shooting up 2 times, 3 times, 4 times.
The good
Um,
times are gone
I'm trying
now.
to think here if there's actually any text on the website here. No, they just sort of have these partner restaurants, recommended restaurants. And the funny thing, these are all probably really good restaurants, but I they're not going to be cheap. But it's nice to see that they are starting to help people
So
because Because it's hard, like even when we went there the first few times, like we're just like, where can we eat that isn't gonna like rip us off? I mean, that's literally what we're thinking half the time.
It's the greatest challenge, one of the greatest challenges. And let's give our audience, just some pointers in this regard. Like, they had to like introduce a cap to how much a hotel room can cost in Basel during Baselworld. And to give you guys an example, a 2-star hotel per night is allowed to only charge 350 Swiss francs per night.
Oh
So
boy, what a
they had to
deal!
limit 2-star hotels, which you can expect, in like in Basel, it's not gonna be that great, a 2-star hotel, and it's 350. Imagine you go there for 7 nights and it's over $2,000 to stay in a 2-star hotel in Basel.
And 2-star, they mean 2-star. They're not screwing around.
Oh yeah.
So on the website here, it says the Baselworld organization team, and again, I appreciate their effort, but it says, literally on the website, that the restaurants, they have assured us that during Baselworld they will not raise their prices above their usual prices. Okay, but then they seem to contradict themselves. Furthermore, our partner restaurants are also serving a special Baselworld menu or provide a Baselworld offer. Doesn't that sound like it'd be more expensive than normal? So they won't raise their prices, but we have a special overpriced option.
No. They gotta keep everyone happy. That's just the way it is.
I think what's interesting here is it shows some of the interesting politics and things behind the scenes that the Baselworld organizers themselves had to go through in order to fix some of the issues in the show. Yeah. So from the exhibitor standpoint, they can think to themselves, oh, it's just about making sure that people can come to the meetings, and there's media, and there's retailers, and our space is good. But there's all these things behind the scenes that were making Baselworld very challenging, such as the price of food and accommodation, especially if you're a brand. For media like us, we can finagle it, we can figure things out. But for brands, I mean, imagine if you're like a brand coming with 50 people. Like, the cost of just putting those people up in hotels and feeding them, just that alone, sometimes made brands say to themselves, I don't really want to come back. So it wasn't the cost of even exhibiting at Baselworld as a show, but just being in Basel from a cost perspective was getting so unruly that brands were starting to protest. So the event organizer actually had to step in and go to the local businesses and be like, guys, could you stop it?
Yeah.
If a 2-star hotel has a price of no more than $350. Yeah. What were they charging the year before last year's? $500, $600? It was starting to get ridiculous.
Yeah, but the whole thing fell apart. I think it was 2 years ago, or was it last year, when you remember how much you were paying for the apartment and it halved 1 year to the next? They just halved the price?
Yep.
When was that? I think it was last year, or maybe it was the year before. I'm not sure. But that really was the first very tangible indicator on where things were heading with Basel and Baselworld. Well, because that means half as many people turned up.
Attendance from exhibitors to dealers, those are probably the two people that started going the least, dramatically went down. So you had overcapacity turning into undercapacity so fast that the various people involved in servicing the guests of the show were kind of left not knowing what to do.
Yeah, in the turn of a year. Yeah, that's right. Let's return for one last second back to products.
Yes.
You didn't respond. What is it that you would like to see, or what you were expecting to see, and then we can wrap it up there.
That's a great question, and people need to understand we don't have a lot of advanced knowledge of what's coming out. We know some things, and some watches have already been released that we've been writing about. I wouldn't say that we've already seen any showstoppers. I think that I'm continually very excited about what the Japanese brands will release. Mm-hmm. Casio, Seiko, and Citizen every single year has some exciting things for us. Seiko's brand Orient that we like is going to be at Baselworld for the first time. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what they do. Remember, these are brands that are not very good at creating demand, but they're very good at sort of responding to demand. And they're also very good at coming with technically innovative watches. And so there's definitely going to be some new functionality, performance, technology from Japanese watches. We know some of the things, we don't know everything. So I'm really excited always to see what the Japanese watchmakers are coming out with. I'm clearly excited to see what Rolex is going to come out with. I'm also interested to see how the smaller brands and the independents are taking advantage of some of the vacuum. You have
Mm-hmm.
between the
They better
Swatch
do.
Group and LVMH and all kinds of things like that. There's been a lot of like corporate churn going on. Think about Breitling, for example, where there's new management or still new management, and it's unclear as to where the direction is. Sometimes products are great, sometimes it's a little silly in terms of what the big brands are doing. So it's the smaller brands that are able to sort of fill in the gaps, and
Mm-hmm.
I always look to Baselworld for um, good everyday watches. We go to the Le Atelier, and you're going to see like a lot of fantastic collector's watches, tourbillons, high complications, things that are visually stunning. But where is the Patek Philippe 5711 alternative? Where's the Submariner alternative? Where are these watches that have more personality? Or more affordability than these popular everyday steel sport watches, but that don't necessarily come with those prices. I'm looking here at Urban Jurgensen. I think this actually came out last year. They have this new bracelet. And it's a relatively simple watch here. I'm not really quite sure what's going on there. That might be one, but it's brands that are making watches to be worn. I love bracelets, so I'm always interested in see what new bracelet styles and new cases. I'm a lot less interested in new movements and things like that. I don't think to myself, boy, I want a little bit more performance, or I'd really like this new way of telling the time. That stuff can impress me, but oftentimes I'm much more impressed by a good design for a case and a bracelet and a dial. And I think more and more brands are realizing that there's gaps in what's being
Huge
offered.
gaps.
The sort of micro brands, as they're often known in the sort of $500 to maybe $3,000 range, have been garnering so much consumer interest, not because they're doing anything that special, but because a lot of the major brands have been avoiding or neglecting the price points of, I'll just say, under $4,000. Or maybe just under like $2,000 or $3,000. But there's this massive segment where people want to spend between $1,000 to $2,000, maybe up to $3,000 or $4,000 on a nice, cool, interesting watch. And for the most part, the big brands are not really serving them. The Swatch Group always has some stuff in there, but they're not going to be at the show, so it's not clear what they're going to see. So for me, I'm excited to see about those watches that I can feel comfortable about recommending that people, because people want to have a cool new watch from these big brands, but they don't necessarily want to say like buy a gold Breitling. They want a new Breitling that doesn't look like old Breitlings, but that isn't crazy overpriced. And when I say overpriced, I don't mean inherently overpriced. What I'm saying is just outside of their expectations of what they can afford. Your average person isn't saying like I can buy a $10,000 watch every couple of months, but $1,000 to $2,000 is a lot more palatable. So because I know that the consumers are so active in this price range, and that which includes a lot of people on the aBlogtoWatch team, those are the types of watches I'm most looking forward to. So where are we going to see them? We're going to see them at Tag. We're going to see them at Tudor. And we'll see who else is able to come up with watches that price level.
I really hope that Tudor finds its old vibe, which created all the buzz around it. That would be really great to see Tudor come back a
we
little
could have
bit.
a whole show. You remember the show we did on the highs and lows of modern Tudor watches?
Oh my God,
So many views and listens to that episode of Spending Time. But what's interesting is the polarity. You have people that agree, and then you have people that are angry at us, not because they disagree, but they feel that we're disparaging their purchase. And I'm like, Tudor's a great watch. We're not even talking about the watches. We're talking about the company management and the marketing. We're really not talking about the product.
And we were not calling anyone stupid for buying a watch they like. That never ever happens. You can buy whatever you like, but in just the same way we can say whatever we want about it.
I will say this as we end the show. I talk plenty of crap about brands I'm happy to spend money on. Okay, so what can people
That's
expect
actually
from
true.
our coverage at Baselworld 2019? We will continue to be doing our videos. We will be doing a lot on social media. Follow us on all channels. We will be publishing what we feel are the most important watches to read about on the website. But social media and YouTube is probably where we're going to see the most up-to-date looks at some of the freshest watches and things that you can get excited about buying a little bit later in 2019. So David, I will see you in Basel next week.
See you very soon, my friend.
Bye, everyone.